Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Tuesday night in T-Town, that means Tider Insider TV here on WVUA 23. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and we have a ton of info tonight. Spring football may be over. Basketball season is months away, but boy, both those sports are dominating the headlines. We're going to begin with basketball because with the uncertainty about the roster in the offseason with just about every program, it's always nice to get good news. And although it's not unexpected, Rodney, Latrell Wrightsell Jr.'s announcement that he is returning to Alabama for another season, in my opinion, is huge. I'll get yours in a moment. He's a terrific three-point shooter, probably, well, percentage-wise, the best three-point shooter on the team. He can also get into the paint and score off the dribble. That's crucial for this offense. Here's his video announcing he's coming back. Wrightsell spent the first 3 years of his career at Cal State Fullerton before transferring to Alabama last April. He averaged 8.9 points this past season while shooting 44.7% from the three. As I said, one of the best shooters on the team. More on him in a moment. First, though, more good news for Alabama basketball. Former Auburn guard Aiden Holloway officially committed to Nate Oates and the Tide over the weekend. The 19-year-old former five-star, former McDonald's All-American, former Player of the Year candidate, made his commitment on Saturday. He averaged, only shot 31.8% from three for the Tigers this past season. That is supposed to be a strength. Kind of lost his confidence, but still was an all-freshman team SEC member. He's a point guard that can handle. As you see, he too can get to the paint. Another crucial addition for Alabama, particularly with not knowing the status of Mark Sears, who's declared for the draft but kept his eligibility. All right, Rodney, let's get to you. Let's start with Holloway since we're looking at his video right now. Started great at Auburn. They expected huge things for him. Playing time decreased. Confidence was lost. It seemed like he has not been shy about saying, hey, you know, that wasn't what I signed up for. Bruce Pearl told me one thing, I got another. Sometimes all you need is a change of venue. We know he's got the talent. How do you think this is going to work out for Alabama?
I think it's going to work out really well. I think when you look at him, it's like you said, Gary started out really well. He lost confidence. I think he felt like some things changed in terms of his role. He did not feel comfortable in that. And I think, you know, at that point, he really decided that he needed to move on, needed to look to other places. I think what he saw in Tuscaloosa was something he felt like he was a fit for. So I'm really confident about this. I think it's a big pickup, like you said, with Mark Sears still uncertain, to be able to bring in a guy like you mentioned him as a former five-star player. Yeah, very, very highly touted player, one of the premier recruits in the country.
And for Wrightsell, even though we expected this, still you never know. Somebody could have swooped in and said, hey, here's a big NILF offer, but he fit in really well. His only problem was, to be honest with you, some health issues. He got injured. He had the concussions, or at least the head injuries that kept him out of several games. But when he played, he's a dynamic shooter, not only from three, but as I said, the ability to get to the paint, had that little scoop shot, had the little stop and step back jumper that he was so good at, even in intermediate range, which Oates isn't a big fan of, but he was able to shoot those. I mean, this is a guy that next year, I would expect, Rodney, he's going to average about 15 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, look, you say that, and that's probably accurate because he's certainly capable of that, Gary. Mm-hmm. But when you look at this roster and you combine him with the personnel that we feel that are coming back, the guys are getting in the portal, it's going to be a loaded roster. I think he's a perfect fit for it.
All right, so those are two that are coming in. Of course, the portal for Alabama, though, the Tide roster is being hit hard by the portal. The latest coming today is Mohamed Wagi, the center that transferred in from West Virginia. It's been announced that he is going into the portal. That is 6 players now from the 2024 Final Four roster that are leaving Alabama. Wagi was a guy that we thought might come back in really kind of a limited role, although you see here against Liberty, he played really well early in the season, but not really thought of as a starter. But yet a big body, and Alabama doesn't have a lot of those.
Yeah. You know, again, I think it speaks something, Gary, about what we're going to find out here in the next week or so, maybe less, in terms of what Alabama's going to do in the portal. They're in on several top guys. I know that we've talked about some of those in the past, but look, I think they need another big body inside. And I think that's going to happen here in the portal very soon. Just a matter of who is it. But I think they're going to get a high-quality player.
All right, 6 Alabama players, as we mentioned. Ryland Griffin, Sam Walters, who's committed to Michigan. He's the only one that's found his future home. Chris Parker, Devin Cosby, Mo Wagee, and Nick Pringle all going in. Of course, Aiden Holloway, Houston Millette, and Chris Youngblood all coming in from the portal. You got 2 signees. Aiden Sherrill and Darian Reed from Prolific Prep in California. And as you mentioned, Alabama's still working the portal. They want a center. They're involved with several. It looks like Cliff Amori from Rutgers is the best possibility. We thought, he went to Georgetown over the weekend. He's going to Kansas State tomorrow. Thought he might commit to Georgetown. If he gets out of Manhattan and gets to Tuscaloosa on Saturday, I like the Tide's chances here.
Well, I think everything right now, Gary, again, you never really can predict this. I mean, it's unpredictable. But I think if he does, and again, I think he will, I think he'll make it here to Tuscaloosa this weekend. I think that certainly enhances Alabama's chances of landing him. Right now, I would say Alabama's the favorite.
And I'll say this too, kind of like when Saban was rolling. In Saban we trust. In Oates we trust. I mean, he understands, he gets it, he knows how you have to turn the roster over. I'm expecting Alabama to have a very talented roster, and you could have Grant Nelson and Mark Sears both come back. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I think it's moving in a favorable direction for Nelson. Again, I don't know about Sears. He's got a decision to make, but you bring both those guys back. I mean, like we said up front, it's set to be a loaded roster.
All right, so we're going to keep it rolling here on Tider Insider TV. We've covered the basketball portal side of things. What about football? Transfer portal is getting hot in that sport as well. When we come back, a big addition that Alabama picked up from the portal just a couple of days ago. We'll tell you all about that. When it comes down to a crucial field goal at the end of the game, you want a guy that you have confidence in. Well, last year, Riker didn't win the kicker of the year, but this guy did. He's coming to Alabama. And also, we'll be getting your phone calls, your emails, and your tweets. The phone number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. We will come right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. We're back on Tider Insider TV, inside our WVUA 23 studios, located inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Our program is brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. The question of who is going to replace All-American kicker Will Reichard has been answered, I think, pretty strongly. Obviously, Connor Talty, we'll talk about him. He's a guy who has a lot of potential. But Alabama football added the guy who beat out Will Reichard last year for the Lou Groza Award, and that is Miami of Ohio place kicker Graham Nicholson. 27 of 28 field goal attempts, including 25 straight, which set an NCAA record. You got, used to just taking Reichard for granted. Well, this guy, like I said, only missed one and was really, really good. And Rodney, if you get a chance to pick up a player of this caliber in the portal, you're going to do it. I don't think this is a reflection on Talty, but it is an opportunity to get who is the best returning kicker in the country.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, you look at Connor Talty, he was extremely highly recruited himself, was considered the heir apparent to the kicking job when he signed with Alabama. But at the same time, Gary, consistency throughout spring practice, not just with Talty, but I think all the kickers was something that was a bit of a question. Again, doesn't mean that they can't develop and won't develop over time, but to be able to land a player, a kicker of this magnitude, Graham Nicholson, I mean, it's really big. He's the best kicker in the country. As you mentioned, he won the Lou Groza last year, hit 25 in a row. His only miss was from 48 last year in the MAC championship game. So I thought this was, when we looked at the portal and we started breaking down, okay, what positions do you need? Obviously, you knew you were going to get some more offensive linemen, some more corners, DBs, but you knew that kicker, if you could find the right kicker, you had to go for him.
And keep in mind on Connor Talty, he's got 4 years of eligibility left. I mean, he could stay. I don't know what he'll do, but if he stays at Alabama, then next year he could be in line to be the kicker. So, still a bright future for him wherever he's at, but there's no doubt Nicholson now is the time. It's his time to be the kicker at Alabama. And speaking of time, it's time for Coach Talk. And our Coach Talk is with Kalen DeBoer. Throughout spring practice, the head coach of the Crimson Tide talked about which positions Alabama could target in the spring transfer portal window. And DeBoer specifically named 2 spots that could be helped in terms of total numbers and depth by the portal.
I'd say in the defensive backfield, we're probably a guy short or so. Offensive line, probably a guy, short. And just from the numbers that you typically would see, and also, where we want to be. So, not saying we'll take a look and evaluate, and then you never know. There might be some guys that, from our roster, surprise us as well. So, we just got to continue to be fluid, be ready to adjust, and continue to keep our eyes open for what's out there when that time comes.
And Alabama football is losing its first scholarship player to the spring portal. Defensive lineman Curtis Perry reportedly entering the portal. Perry was a four-star prospect out of Pike Road High School near Montgomery in the class of 2022. He appeared in one game last season and redshirted during 2022. He is the 13th scholarship defensive player to enter the portal from last year's Week 1 roster. Rodney, this is a guy who never really got an opportunity here, but quick twitch guy, probably a little undersized, but number 97, I'm told, has got a high motor. Defensive linemen are in demand in college football. I have no doubt that wherever he goes, he's going to get an opportunity. But why don't you think it worked out for him here?
I really don't know. I mean, like you said, he came here from Pike Road. He was a very acclaimed, accomplished high school player, had a lot of sacks, was a great pass rusher. There were some defensive line coaches around the country who said, look, if this guy's developed, he could develop into an Aaron Donald type player with his quickness. So why it didn't really work out, don't know. But look, I still think he's a really good player. Some people question his height a little bit, Gary, but in this new system, I think he could have been effective.
Yeah, but he is going to move on, and we wish him well. All right, let's get to the transfer portal as far as guys that Alabama's looking at. And you heard Coach DeBoer say secondary is an area where they're looking for some extra players. Defensive back Ed Woods out of Arizona State is one of the best corners in the country, and he is in the portal. Appeared in 32 games the last 3 seasons for the Sun Devils. He's been running as a starter all spring. This is kind of a little bit of a surprise to Arizona State, but with Ed Woods going in the portal, Alabama certainly taking a hard look.
Yeah, here again, he's a guy with a lot of experience, and that's what you need. When you look at the corners, obviously Damani Jackson transferring in from USC, got a lot of starts out there. Then you've got a lot of freshmen. You've got those 3 highly recruited 5-star players, and they're really talented. And look, maybe one of those guys can start or will start. We'll see. But when you can get an experienced player in the secondary that's played the corner spot, you mentioned he was the top cover corner at Arizona State. That would be a guy that you certainly have to consider.
Yeah, and DeBoer also mentioned about adding an offensive lineman or two. Keep in mind, too, Caden Proctor is coming back. He is here in Tuscaloosa. He'll be enrolling in classes just as soon as he finishes up online for this semester at Iowa. And then Alabama probably, Rod, I think it's safe to say, as Coach DeBoer alluded to, is going to add another lineman or two out of the portal.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, you've got Proctor coming, as you mentioned, but another one, I would not be surprised.
All right. We're going to keep it rolling here on TITV. Players coming in, and what about players leaving for the NFL draft? It's quickly approaching, and there are 4 more former Crimson Tiders that are in line to go in the first round, and I guess what you'd call Nick Saban's final draft at Alabama. We'll tell you who they are and where they're projected, and we'll also be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information right there on your screen, 205-348-9882, or you can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. We'll be right back with Tider Insider TV as we roll on this Tuesday night in T-Town right after this. The NFL Draft will kick off with the first round on Thursday night up in Motor City, Detroit, Michigan. This year's Crimson Tide contingent includes what might be 4 first-rounders in Nick Saban's last NFL draft class. Those possible first-rounders, Dallas Turner, J.C. Latham, Terry Arnold, and Kool-Aid McKinstry. And all 4 players really, quite frankly, are projected to go in the first, although some people have McKinstry in the second. 7 other Crimson Tiders are eligible and could be drafted at any time between Friday and Saturday in the later rounds. Chris Braswell, Jermaine Burton, Will Reichert, Justin Aboybe, Jace McClellan, Darian Dalcourt, and Jalen Key are among those who are eligible. Players aren't the only one making their appearance at the NFL Draft, as Nick Saban is making his ESPN debut as an analyst for the network, as he's going to work the draft, Rodney. So I guess when it comes to evaluating those Alabama guys, who better than Nick Saban?
That's right. He recruited them. He's known them, most of them, since they've been sophomores in high school.
I think he can give you the scoop. All right, we got phone calls backed up, so let's get out to Sammy up in Walker County to lead us up. The Tomato Man is ready to go. What's up, Sammy?
Hey, Gary and Rodney, a great job, guys. Gary, 1st of May, have them in the ground, baby.
I'll be waiting on mine again this year. You better give me some watermelons, too. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. The question, Gary and Rodney, is who do y'all like as the kickoff return, and especially the punt return guys, especially, the returners? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sammy. I think, obviously Caleb Downs would have been in position to do that. We saw how explosive he is, but he's gone to Ohio State. But, Rodney, there's a lot of athletes on this team, and I would think, whoever the punt and kickoff returners are, they'll have a chance to be explosive.
Yeah, if you want to start with kickoff returns, obviously last year Kendrick Law was back there. I think maybe even Emmanuel Henderson. I think he has a tremendous amount of ability, a tremendous amount of potential as a kickoff return guy, Sammy. But like Gary said, there's a lot of options. When you're talking about punt returns, I look at what Washington did last year with Jeremy Bernard, the transfer, and I think there's a good chance you could see him back there. I've heard a lot of really good things about Jalen Mbakwe's ability in terms of returning punts, so maybe he'll be a guy. Ryan Williams will be here. And, there's just so many guys in terms of the athleticism and the qualities that you need at those spots that I think they're not going to have a tough time finding somebody.
All right, thank you, Sam. Let's go down to Daphne and talk with Bob. Hey, Bob.
Hey, fellas, enjoy the show.
Thanks.
Sammy asked my question. I was interested in Cole Adams. Is he the young man we got from Oklahoma a couple of years ago?
He is, Bob, and he tell you what, he had a great heyday game. You think a classic slot receiver, Rodney, Cole Adams comes to mind. He reminds you, I hate to say this, but he reminds you of those Patriots guys. I mean, he finds the opening, he can catch the ball, he can take the hits, which you better be able to do if you're going to play in the slot, and he might could factor in the kicking game as well. Yeah, Bob, he was a fantastic player, and that's right, he could factor in the kick return game as well. He was a fantastic player at Wausau, Oklahoma, coming out of high school. He was injured most of his senior year in high school, was injured a little bit last year, but I know when he first got here, he created a lot of excitement that first scrimmage. He created a lot of excitement this spring. I think you're going to see a lot of number 13. All right, we need to get to a break. Rick and Brent, you hold on. We'll get to you, and we'll also get to our email question of the day. And there's the phone number again if you want to get through, 205-348-9882. More TITV is on the way right here on WVUA 23. Well, Bama baseball and softball had up and down weekends. Baseball dropped 2 of 3 at home to Texas A&M, but remember the Aggies are number 1. So Bama played Arkansas and A&M, the number 1 teams back-to-back, and went 3-3. Not too bad overall. Tide avoided the sweep against a powerful Aggie team. Meanwhile, the Tide's playing Sanford right now in their final midweek. We'll have a score update for you at 10, and they'll be at Ole Miss on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the SEC. Meanwhile, softball lost 2 of 3 at Arkansas. Bad news here is Alabama softball played 19 innings because they got run rule once. And in those 19 innings, they scored 5 runs, but all 5 runs came in 1 inning. That means in 18 innings, they didn't score. And offensively, I'm just going to tell it like it is, they're lacking. They're lacking offensively, this Alabama softball team is. But maybe you can still get it going. All right, welcome back into the program. We're going to do our email question of the day. Our email question of the day is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. All right, let's get to it, Rod. And this is from Steve in Tuscaloosa. How concerned are y'all that 6 Alabama basketball players are in the portal? Thanks, Steve. We kind of covered this earlier. Not that concerned. I know that sounds silly, but I just think that's the way it is. And with Nate Oates, Rodney, if Nate Oates wasn't the coach, I'd probably be very concerned. But I think they're going to replace these guys with players that are equal or more talented than the ones that are leaving. Yeah, I do too. I mean, look, I think that it may not be 6 every year, but this is kind of the trend. This is what we saw last year. You lost a lot of players. So I don't think it's really a surprise, and certainly not a concern because of the things you mentioned, Gary. I think Nate Oates is doing a really good job positioning Alabama for some great transfers. All right, let's jump back out on the phone line and get to Rick over in Brent. Hey, Rick, what's going on, man?
Fine. How are y'all tonight?
Doing well.
Hey, is that the 7th time Alabama's lost to the eventual national champion or even the national runner-up?
Well, you'd have to add them up for me. I know they lost to Indiana in 76. They lost to North Carolina in 82. I know they lost to UConn twice, including this year, and the runner-up. There's probably some more in there. So I'm taking it that you're probably close to right. It's probably 6 or 7 times. But hey, when you get in the NCAA tournament, you're going to play somebody good. Yeah. And I would tell you this: it took Alabama a long time to get to the Final Four, but I would rather be knocked out by the national champion than by some 15 seed.
Yale.
Call me silly. Yeah, or any 14 seed, 15 seed, 16 seed. I'll just tell you that. All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails, and we're going to come back with more TITV. All right, we're going to get to one more phone call. I'm sorry. All right, BT here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, BT.
Hey, Gary Harris, how are you?
Doing well.
Doing good. I'm doing good, Gary. Rodney and Gary, I want to ask about how you think the defense is going to do this year.
Thank you, BT. Rod, that's a good question because I'm not sure. I'll let you take this.
Well, look, I think it all starts up front. I think they've got a lot of really quality players up front and got some youth, maybe some inexperience. But I think when Jaheim Otis comes back, I think that's going to be a really big key. I think the linebackers, when you look at Jahad Campbell, you look at Deontay Lawson, those are two of the best in the country. I think with replacing Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell is certainly going to be difficult, but you got Keanu Coote, you got Quandarius Robinson, you got Quay Russaw, you got Yanze Pierre. You got about 7 or 8 guys, Gary, that were 5-star players coming out. I think the real key is how does this secondary, with a lot of the youth that they have, a lot of the new players, where it's Keon Sabb at safety, Damani Jackson at one of the corners, one of the freshmen at maybe at the other corner, unless you get a guy out of the portal. There's a lot of new parts there in that secondary. But I will say this, when you listen to the Alabama coaches, when you listen to Kane Womack throughout the spring, he seemed really confident, Gary, about where they were and how they're developing. So, look, I'm excited to see them. Because I think they do have a lot of young talent.
All right, now we thank you for the phone call. Sorry there were some emails we didn't get to. We'll try to get to those next week. Still to come, all good things must come to an end, including the Alabama gymnastics season. At least it came in the NCAA Championships. We'll have that when we come back. Alabama gymnastics made it to the NCAA National Championships, but in the semifinals last Thursday, the Tide finished 4th in their pool with a score of 195.412. Really had great routines except for the balance beam. 4 falls on the beam, that did them in. Still, though, great season for Alabama gymnastics, and always expect a chance to compete for national championship, and they did that, Roddy, so came up a little bit short. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you tonight with some video of country star Riley Green taking some batting practice with Alabama baseball last week. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night.